Seriously, man, I feel like I can't share that opinion at all. Maybe this is just how fandom works now, because I didn't get this pushback when I said the same about The Last of Us, Red Dead Redemption 2, Tears of the Kingdom, though some of those did surprise people. I've been getting a ton of pushback in my personal life, both real and on the internet. I mean what I said, I didn't love Expedition 33. Love being the key word. I still thought it was good, but apparently that means I hated the game, have never played an RPG before, and I have horrible taste. I can't speak to that last part, but the former two statements couldn't be further from the truth. It just didn't resonate with me the same way it did for others, I guess. To quickly review it, the visuals are unique and nice to look at. The music is mostly great, and it has some fantastic sound design. The gameplay is fun and engaging, though at some points confusing, and a few times annoying or repetitive. The story is interesting and entertaining. It's a serious game that doesn't take itself too seriously. However, the way the story is told is where the game loses points, and the cast is a real mixed bag for me. 7.5 out of 10, RPGs are never meant to be one size fits all, and despite my issues, I had fun with the game and I want to see more games like it, and maybe even see the series continue. And with that, see ya. Unfortunately, that isn't going to be enough to really explain my lack of ultimate praise, so off we go into the spoiler zone. Those wanting to play the game themselves, or just generally uninterested in my opinion, beware. To begin, I'd like to explain that I'm not just getting comments like, "Oh, you didn't like it? That's interesting, what are your thoughts?" People have been stepping to me about being a bad judge of quality, someone who's either blinded by nostalgia or has never played an RPG before. I've been getting some really obnoxious explanations about the story that I already understood, or just general rudeness about how I didn't like it as much as they did, almost in a way to say that I'm not a true gamer, whatever that is. I wish some of these people were joking, and I don't know why they'd ask me my thoughts on the game if they just wanted me to agree with them. Okay, so let me get the good things out of the way first, because I really would like people to understand that I think this game has a lot of great things going for it. The visuals for the game are really well done. It's all very weird and colorful and sometimes a little generic, but in a way that reminds you of older RPGs from the 90s and 2000s. Like, there are a bunch of limitations, but they did a lot of cool stuff regardless of that, like when you see an RPG or Game Maker game with a unique art style. There isn't a ton of environmental storytelling, and I always laughed when you'd grab a bunch of chroma from the dead colorless body of a past expeditioner, and a character would just be hyped instead of horrified. So that's solid. There are tons of optional places to explore too, which is awesome in my opinion. I don't need to talk about the music, it was great. There are some weird tracks, but every single RPG has that, and that variety is great because it creates discussion. I'm not a big classical music guy though. The gameplay, specifically the turn-based battles, are really fun, especially once you've fought against an enemy a few times. Parrying is satisfying and dodging feels smooth. It's kind of annoying learning enemy patterns so suddenly though, especially for things like boss battles, but I didn't have too much of an issue with it. Some characters' mechanics are more fun than others. Off the top of my head, Luna and Mael have fun and easy to understand mechanics. The others are also easy to understand, but I found some boring, especially Verso's. Combat didn't feel too repetitive, which was nice. I never felt like I had to grind for bosses, which was good. The story is actually really interesting. When you break it down, it's a story about fighting for others, grief, finding a place to call your own, the human spirit, and a whole host of other things you can discuss. It's fun and well thought out. What is not thought out is how the story is told, at least from my perspective. From here, we're moving on to what I did not like about the game. The main thing that surprised me is how so many people were enthralled by the story and saw no issues whatsoever with how inconsistent it was. This game wanted to do everything all at once that starting in Act 2, it was stretching itself too thin. I love when games are experimental, but unfortunately, this one did not land with me. You may be thinking, oh, I know what this is about. He's sad that Gustav was killed at the end of Act 1. You may also be thinking, haha, for those who come after. It's about accepting the grief. This guy completely missed the point. He's just sad that his favorite character died. In that smug thought process that I've been getting hit with, you'd only be right that I was sad my favorite and arguably the best character in the game died. Obviously not everybody shares that opinion about being the best, but for me, I liked Gustav, and it's hard not to say he gave the game a lot of the heart and motivation to even go on this quest. That being said, I didn't mind that he was killed at the end of Act 1. I thought he'd be brought back at some point and was disappointed that he didn't return, and that's something I can forgive if the game held its ground. But it's after that point that everything else in the game starts to show some cracks. Almost immediately after Gustav is killed and we move on, he is replaced as main playable protagonist by Verso, a move that I thought would be temporary but turns out to be permanent. I like Verso. I like his story a lot. I don't think he should have been the main playable character. I think that should have gone to Mael, and I think it's weird that we're playing as him. I don't typically like protagonist switching if the character is someone just introduced into the story, especially when you consider that Mael is really the key character of the whole thing, a move I also don't really care much for. But truthfully, it feels weird because Verso changes the dynamic of not just the party, but of the whole journey. He comes in from the get-go, and while clearly not evil, he is a bit suspicious. He's obviously hiding things. This is like when you have a new conniving character join the party that you know is going to betray everyone, but this time they're the main playable character. So despite clearly being on a different page from everyone else, you now have to build your relationship with the other party members as him. You have to get to know him through getting to know them, but you don't get to know him in the way that counts because you only see him when he's being charming or vulnerable. You can also romance Ciel and Lune, two characters who are mostly not very interesting to me. They have depth to them, but the emotional attachment just isn't there, mostly because they seem to be stuck to their respective character tropes. The romance with Lune seems sudden, and the one with Ciel seems honestly a lot more realistic. A woman who misses her deceased husband still has needs. But all of this is made worse by the fact that the game tries to paint Verso as a charming, thoughtful, and caring character who wants what's best for everybody. And maybe he really does want what's best for everybody, but he's actually working against their goal and the goal we set out chasing in the first place. And rather than split him off, the game continues to pretend like they're all on the same team. It feels like story Verso is a completely different entity from gameplay Verso. Even after he first acts suspicious in Old Lumiere, Lune says she's got her eye on him, and then proceeds to act like nothing ever happened. Then he betrays everyone and gets them all gommaged. Despite everyone being angry, Verso says he's going to regain everyone's trust again. They calm down, only for him to do next to absolutely nothing to regain anyone's trust, maybe a singular meaningful side quest, and then he goes to just betray everyone all over again, with his success being player choice. It's like the perspective of the game is from the ensemble cast who are actively trying not to be killed, but the character we play is working with them, but is actively working against that goal while still being framed as a good guy. So we're forced to be this person who's betraying the ultimate goal of the group, while the game makes us pretend like we're not. I think it would have been much more interesting if we weren't forced to stay with him because he clearly has his own understandable goal. This is main bad guy energy, and I think he would have been even more effective as an antagonist because you can absolutely see his point of view, his goal, and his motivations behind it. He isn't even evil, which makes him an even more fun antagonist in my opinion. It's really a shame because I think Verso is a cool character with an understandable outlook, but it really felt like they made him take the lead for no reason, or like they liked him too much to frame him as an antagonist. You could argue that all of this is like a way to make things feel more divisive or something, but I personally just felt like the perspective of the story just flies around too much. After finding out Mael's true identity, Lune and Ciel are really the only true connection we have to the original purpose of the game, and they just kind of take a back seat. They make a complaint or two, but then very quickly get over it and move on and pretend like nothing happened. Things change in games, I understand that, but like trying to make us appreciate Verso so quickly after we're forced to leave Gustav, the game is really quick in trying to make us connect to Verso's struggles and the world outside the canvas. Where Gustav was a loving, quietly charming, thoughtful person who's fighting for other people, Verso is a charming douchebag who lets Gustav die, fucks one of the girls, hides information and betrays the party, and everyone loves him anyway until the very end if you choose his ending, which for the record is the ending I believe to be the right choice. I'm oversimplifying Verso a bit. He's got a lot more depth than that, but there was never a point where I felt as connected to his goal or his perspective. So, breaking it down, you start the game seeing the world broken apart and hopeless as Gustav. You feel a connection to him and to the struggling population of Lumiere. You feel driven to uncover the mystery and save the world. You see the deaths of all your teammates, your love, you see the selfless sacrifices of previous expeditions, and you push forward because you want there to be a future for everyone. Gustav dies, and you must continue forward without him. You meet Verso, and things haven't changed. Your goals are to move forward and try to attack the paintress at her heart, until you find out that, oh, Verso's father is the one who killed Gustav and all of the expeditioners you came with. Alright, no problem. That's a little suspicious, but okay. We continue on the journey, make it to the paintress, and we beat her ass. The struggle is over. until we find out that the paintress was trying to protect everybody and everyone dies and Verso never let us know. It turns out that everybody in the world are just paint creatures. Paint creatures who have thoughts and feelings and emotions and feel pain and love and would very much not like to be killed. Mael's father wants to destroy the canvas because Mael's real family is addicted to grieving, so they've decided to take it out on these innocent paint creatures. Okay, no problem. Now we want to bring everybody in the painted world back to life. Verso agrees to helping everybody after betraying everybody. He convinces everybody of that by saying absolutely nothing of value, just a promise to win back everyone's trust. We feel the passion of the Lumiere people to save the world. Mael gathers up troops and wants to kick her father out so she can help save everybody in the canvas, who just want to live their lives in peace. They kick her father out, and then Verso, fresh off the last betrayal, has decided that he doesn't want to live this life in which he has adventures, gets drunk, and fucks women 60 years younger than him. He tries to destroy the canvas while everybody watches. Understandable for Verso and the right thing to do for Mael. But it's the wrong thing to do for literally everything else we've been doing all game. The story of being selfless and working together for the greater good is thrown out the window for a lesson about grief for a bunch of characters that the player has no connection to. It doesn't matter how unhealthy it may be for Mael, because she was only one person in a cast of people. The scene and motivations that were set up by Gustav was slowly stripped away until it was one about selfishness. You're either selfish as Mael, choosing to live in delusion in a fantasy world, or you're selfish as Verso and betray the trust you kept getting back for free to destroy the life you didn't want to live anymore. Either everybody disappears, meaning you failed at the goal you started the game with, or you're delusional, having your friend and teammates sacrifice their mental stability for you to keep living. And that in and of itself is a really interesting story. But as time went on, my connection to the game just kept getting damaged because I didn't understand what the game wanted me to feel. Because it was definitely not conflicted. The purpose of the whole game is to save Lumiere and the people of the painted world. But it wants you to forget all about that and forces you to pretend you're not playing a character that wants to erase everyone, whether it would be selflessly. Why are we building up our relationship levels as someone who is actively trying to betray them, does betray them, but they just ignore it? I lost interest in their relationship levels and felt like they were a chore because I was increasingly losing my personal connection to Verso as a whole. Why wouldn't they just speak to Renoir and see if they can reason with him? He holds the chroma of all of the people and creatures of the canvas. He could just make a new one and bring the people back there. He's also aware that these people all have feelings and dreams. Does he see no moral issue treating living beings in such a way? In the end, what the hell was the point of everyone suffering? The game puts Lune, Ciel, Minoko, Esquier, Gustav, Sophie, everyone we spent time with on the backseat for Mael and Verso. The people of the painted world existed to suffer and die, or live with the delusional god who chooses sacrificing her health over working through her grief. It's such a good story, but it's just not told in a way that convinced me it's amazing. Our motivations from the start are with the main characters. You mean to tell me that we just suddenly have to accept that everyone has to die? What happened to for those who come after? Why is everyone quoting that at me, but are just willing to accept that everyone in the world actually does have to die, so there is nobody after, or go against for those who come after and make everything better at the expense of one family who caused all of this in the first place? The way Act 1 sets the game up with Gustav doesn't match what the rest of the game moves into. It pivots into being about grief and moving on, but at the expense of other people, not the benefit. How am I supposed to just forget everyone else and the purpose of our mission? We don't even have a real buildup of Verso showing up, leaving, betraying anyone. It's all just so sudden because he's mostly different in camp versus cutscenes or plot points. I felt majorly disconnected to the story, but I can see that it is good and that Verso's intentions and goal are just. Maybe the game just put too much development into Gustav's character in Act 1, because rewatching the cutscenes of Act 1 makes me feel like I'm playing a completely different game. If I were going to change anything, I would make Verso a party member, but keep the focus on Mael. I would also change Verso to at some point becoming the antagonist, because that would have made it feel even more difficult of a decision at the end of the game, if Mael is the one who's choosing to save the canvas or let her brother's soul rest. Mael should have also been doing the relationship building, because she didn't really have much of a bond with the others either, so it would have been fine. Why is Verso building his relationship with Esquier and Minoko anyway? They call each other best friends already and they know his secrets. Also, I didn't know when else to say this, but I didn't care when Minoko's son died. I thought he was kind of annoying. It was funny seeing him in the pot with his headbrush sticking out. So there you go. Other minor grievances are like, most rewards for exploring are just color of lumina and stuff like that, which is useful, but after a while kind of boring to get. Other than that, I really had a great time with this game. When you break down the finer details of your problems with the game, it can seem like a lot, but I don't think I've ever played a perfect game, and I think all RPGs are flawed to some degree. It's just kind of the nature of the genre. No RPG is one size fits all, and that's okay. My favorite RPGs are games like Tales of Symphonia, the first two Paper Marios, Radiata Stories, Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey in 4, Shadow Hearts, Final Fantasy VIII. None of these games are perfect, and yet I've never felt the need to dog anyone who said they didn't love those games. There are tons of RPGs that start to turn people off of the story or gameplay at some point, and for me, if the story starts to lose me, then it starts to lose points overall. And it'll lose even more points when people smugly start to claim that I just didn't get it, like I'm unable to grasp any deeper symbolic concepts. So I still really don't understand why people have been getting so defensive over me not loving this game, but at the very least, I hope now you understand why I didn't love it. A lot of this was stream of conscience, so if you want to fight me or need clarification, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I've had my fun with Expedition 33, and it's time to move on. And with that, see ya.